you. Mr. Isaacman, I wanted to ask you, so let's just pretend you're in Missouri among a group of students, constituents, just a good cross-section of my state. If you were to answer the question, why is it important that the United States of America gets to the moon first or gets to Mars first ahead of the Chinese, what would be your answer?
Well, Senator, I think there's a couple reasons, one of which is fulfilling a promise that's been made by every president since 1989 and over $100 billion that's been funded by taxpayers on our grand return to the moon. I think it's imperative that we do so, and failing to do so calls into question American exceptionalism beyond just our expertise in the high ground of space. Second, I do believe, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, that when we return, we will have an opportunity to determine and realize the scientific, economic, and national security value on the lunar surface. Now, an example I used in my, my previous hearing is that there is helium-3 on the moon. Not a lot of it, but certainly more than there is here on Earth, and that is predicted to be a more efficient source of fusion power. Now, I mean, our foreign policy and wars have been fought for a century over sources of power. To get that wrong could have implications here on Earth that could change the balance of power.
We have in this country, I think, a pretty robust ecosystem of new companies, small businesses, sort of disruptors that have entered the fray here as it relates to whether it's commercial space exploration or travel or what have you. How can NASA, in your role, help sort of cultivate that, work with them? Because I do think that's one of the advantages we have over China in this race. What can you do as in this potentially this new role?
Senator, it's a great question, and a lot of people do believe generally these are new developments, but in reality, going back to the 1960s in the space race, NASA worked alongside some of our great aerospace companies. I mean, whether it was Boeing or McDonnell Douglas or Northrop, for sure, sir. So a lot of those names are still very relevant within the space program today. And then there's also a lot of new names that is referred to sometimes as new space or commercial space. I think it's going to take the contributions of the many to do the near impossible. Now, where NASA can play a role is consistent in the past, which is sharing its expertise and talent to help these new companies. When NASA does tend to figure out the near impossible and it's mature enough technology to hand it off to industry where innovation can improve upon the capability and lower cost, that's a great outcome. I also think NASA can do a very good job expressing the need. What is the requirement? Because there are lots and lots of commercial space companies now. I think Ranking Member Cantwell mentioned, I think she said over 1,000 in her state alone. That's fantastic. We just want to make sure they're all working on things that bubble up to our most important objectives. So I think NASA can do an even better job of working with industry to outline the problems that need to be solved and ensure we're kind of concentrating American ingenuity in the right direction, sir.
Well, I think that to put on the parochial hat for a moment, I think St. Louis is a defense tech hub with former McDonnell Douglas and Boeing with their defense side, the NGA West, which is completing their new facility. There's a lot of opportunities, and which leads sort of the next question on quantum. Washington University in St. Louis is doing a lot of really important work here. How do you see NASA's role in furthering that mission, right, to be on the cutting edge? Because I think what I was getting at with the first question, all of this, civilizations come and go, right? And in many ways, whoever has the most advanced technology, whether it's warfare or on the more the commercial side, they tend to thrive and win this great competition. And NASA is going to is playing a very important role, continue to play an important role. How do you see on the quantum side NASA working with research institutions and the private sector?
It's an excellent question, Senator. So,
thank you, by the way. Yeah. Thank you for that.
I mentioned earlier about the importance of determining the orbital economy. So for 60 years, other than a few exceptions, the space economy has still come down to launch, observation, and communication, which is largely funded by the government. And if we do want a very exciting spacefaring civilization in the future with lots of space stations and orbital, lunar outposts and Mars bases, we're going to actually have to figure out that economy. There's a lot of prospect when it comes to quantum computing, quantum communications, and what I would like to do is ensure that the highest potential science and research has a expeditious path to the International Space Station so we can maximize that remaining life and then hopefully crack the code on the orbital economy that gives all the commercial space stations a fighting chance. So quantum has a number of applications that can take advantage of the unique environment of microgravity, sir.
Well, thank you for your service, and I wish you all the best in this new position. Good luck. Yep.